If nature has given me a certain handicaps, it has also blessed me with a lot of strengths. Some of my strengths which I see are that I'm very good at visualizing things, imagining things. As a typical daydreamer, I can dream up things. I'm an infinite bundle of energy, so it's like a bottomless pit whereby you just keep working and stuff. I'm very good at multitasking. What I have done is I've realized that because of these things, because I was always jumping around from one project to another, I was a misfit in a big company where these boundaries are very nicely drawn and you have to stay within that boundary that has been assigned to you. Most people with ADHD, I realized, that is the reason why they're very successful as entrepreneurs, when they can dream up their own startups or companies, and they can start working towards it, and it becomes a very good recipe for being entrepreneurs. My name is Prashant, and I've been in Singapore since 2006. I'm a Singapore PR. I run companies, which is 3 of them at the moment. I'm an entrepreneur where I basically scale startups. So I invest in companies and then I help them scale. And by scaling, I mean actually taking them out of their home country and expanding them globally. I have my fair share of weaknesses like any other human being. The biggest being my inability to focus, which also means that I am not very good with details. I'm not very good with things that require a lot of writing. So that's one area which is my handicap. I am forgetful, very, very forgetful. I have a challenge with self-regulation. So these are some of my handicaps, but I accept those I'm very aware of those handicaps. I accept those and don't try to overpower them. I don't try to get better of them. I just figure out workarounds. So when I say I'm not very good at details, I will always hire somebody as an assistant or my partner who is very good with details, right? So it's just a person who will be always around me with a skill set that is complementary to mine. Taking care of being forgetful is slightly easier because number one, I try and not remember things. I try to take care of things right there and then. So either I will delegate, pass on to somebody else, at least not keep it on my table. But if I'm the only one who can actually do it, I will put in and I'll write in a notebook. I'll set up a reminder, and this is something that I do very religiously. And I'll put sticker notes across it's my office or my home. Another big handicap that we have, especially people with ADHD and I have, is because we are very impulsive. And this impulsiveness shows very much in terms of when other people are speaking, we tend to interject, we tend to interrupt, or sometimes just say things which are blurted out without thinking too much about what I'm going to say, what words are going to come out of my mouth, whether these words are going to be hurtful, or whether I will sound as condescending. So I'm now very, very mindful of that. And I have a setup of filter in my mind. I basically wait for at least 10 seconds when a thought comes to my mind, and I kind of synthesize it properly. And I wait for some time. And as a principle, I'm training my mind not to blurt out things, especially because words can hurt and it can cause permanent damage. You name it, there are all these successful people, CEOs, entrepreneurs who have ADHD. So I think you use the right word, it's a misconception, and which is what it is. It's a misconception that are intellectually challenged. We are not. Are we differently abled? Yes. Yeah. So I think it remains a misconception. But yes, we have our own set of challenges. We may not fit directly into the regular school system, which is basically structured towards the 95-98% of the people who are just normal. So of course, in those school systems, sometimes we may come out as square pegs in the round holes, and so we have to figure out our own ways. I will tell you my own example. When I was in school, primary school or secondary school, I was perpetually daydreaming. My teacher would be talking to the class, and I would be looking out the window and looking at the grass and looking at the playground and dreaming up things. And I had no idea what she was talking about. To me, I wasn't even listening to her. But there was a structure when I went home. My mom would sit with me, my dad would sit around, and they will take up my homework and they would help me do the homework. And so primarily I would come back home and I would study in small nuggets. What people took 2 hours to grasp, I could do it in 30 minutes. But when my grades came out, I was like top of the class because I had my own ways of making up for what I was missing out in class. And unfortunately, if you do not have a diagnosis with ADHD, or if you are not aware that you have these challenges and you don't structure your study pattern or according to your strengths and factoring in for solving for the weaknesses, then yes, you will remain academically poor because we have our fair share of weaknesses. I always knew that I was not able to focus, but that was pretty much it. I did not have a term for it. I didn't know what it was called. And then I stumbled upon an article which was written by Edward Hallowell. The article is called Overloaded Circuits, Why Smart People Underperform. And here the author kind of talks about two different types of situations. One is called ADD and ADT. And he was talking about the fact that, how people with ADD have these it's a neurological disorder, and these people have difficulty focusing, doing a few other things, controlling their emotions. I felt that kind of sounds like me, and I said, okay, fine, maybe ADD. And then I didn't do much about it. I just read the article and just kept it aside. In 2016, I chanced upon a book called Driven to Distraction by Dr. Edward Hallowell, and I happened to read it. As I was reading through the book, I realized that the patients that he was describing were pretty much a replica of me. And they had exactly the kind of symptoms that I had, and the challenges they were facing was very similar to mine. And so primarily in 2016, towards the end of it, I had a word for it called ADHD. But again, having said that, after that, a few months later, I went to a psychiatrist and got officially diagnosed with an ADHD. He prescribed medication to me. Actually, when I took the medication, my entire world changed. Basically, from daydreamer, I actually landed on ground, and everything was like so different from my previous world, and I really was enjoying it. Except that I was very apprehensive about the side effects of this medication, and so kind of stopped the medication midway, and then reverted back to my whole previous ways of working. And then I also thought that maybe I should try meditation, and maybe that meditation might help me with my ADHD. And so I kind of depended on meditation for a few years to basically think that maybe it might help me with my ADHD, which definitely did not. In 2020, I came to the conclusion, and also consulted some other doctors and my friends, who said that the only way out of ADHD was medication. And so in 2020, I started back on medication, and that was a 10-year journey of my first having a term called ADD to properly getting diagnosed in 2016, and then switching full-time to medication in 2020. The first thing when you have a community, first thing that comes in, I'm not the only idiot in town. There's many other people like me. Basically, sometimes I used to feel why I'm so unique, why I'm so different, and sometimes it does get to you, you feel frustrated, why am I like that? Why I can't focus? Anybody else can do it, why am I not able to do it? But when you have a community, you realize that there are many other people who have similar challenges, and so primarily it makes you feel not alone. I'm a mental health trainer where I teach a lot of caregivers at the Caregivers Alliance. Recently, I had a group of caregivers who I had lessons for, and these were caregivers of ADHD people, of ADHD patients. And as I was teaching and going through my teaching journey, every class I was discovering something new about myself. For example, I realized how many of my caregivers were struggling in the relationships with their loved ones. So they were struggling to have a good, normal relationship with their loved one. Although the caregivers themselves were regular, normal people, but it's just that they couldn't have a proper relationship with them. And it basically made me think that maybe I also have challenges maintaining relationships. The other perspective is also that, as a community, you come together, you gather all this knowledge, you gather this body of understanding that everybody has, the shared experiences, you bring them together, and you start helping people so that they don't go through the challenges which we have gone through. So it's basically kind of preempting them from going down the same route which you have been. First thing is speak up about mental health is very important because we all know there is a stigma around it. It also, reduces the stigma around me going out and speaking in front of people that, look, I have this certain condition and I'm not embarrassed about it. So it gives you that courage to go out and do this. And then it becomes like a chain reaction. So once somebody does it, then there's somebody else gets that courage to do it. And then slowly but surely, that's how it becomes like a movement. And becomes mainstream. The misconceptions that we are ideological, or we are intellectually challenged, or we are academically not doing very well, those misconceptions go away and people start to take you as if you're just a regular guy with a different set of strengths and weaknesses.